Peace and blessings. This is Satori again. We're going to get into part 9 into the Truth series. And we're going to continue to deal with paradoxes. We're going to continue to venture into that. Up to this point, we all should understand what a paradox is. And a paradox is simply, when we use the word paradox, we're referring to self-contradictions. All right? Now, as we understand, the principle in the scripture from the Book of Life that I referred to, it says, "You shall know the truth, and the truth shall make you free." And so when we look at that word "know," we understand that there's an awareness that we are to have that will bring us to a truth that eventually will bring us to a freedom. So I want to say this: the goal to freedom is to have our inner awareness to be compatible with our outer awareness. So our inner life should be compatible with the outer life. And when our inner life goes against what the outer life presents to us, then what we call is, we will basically identify as a paradox. Simple fact, because the paradox will exist because the outer life is going against a self-concept that we should have about ourselves, which when it's going against your self-concept, that means that you're more open to contradict yourself, and you begin to fashion yourself after what the external life is presenting to you. All right? Let's distinguish the inner life, or the inner. There's two types of awarenesses. You have an inner awareness and you have an outer awareness. Now, the inner awareness is the inner activities that's moved by inspiration. Now, the inner activities that I'm referring to is the different, as earlier in the series I referred to, different environments that exist inside the self, or we can say they're different compartments that make up the self. So we're talking about the spiritual aspect of it, we're talking about the psychological aspect of it, we're talking about the emotional aspect of it, we're talking about the sensual aspect of it, we're talking about the volitional aspect of it, and we're talking about the sexual aspect of it. And all these things makes up the self. But all these different things that I listed are actually moved by inspiration. All right? So, the outer awareness refers to the external activities that drives perception. Outer awareness is the external activities that drives our perception. And so you think about it, so we have one awareness caters to inspiration, and the other awareness caters more to perception. So when perception and inspiration collides, that's a result of a paradox existing. Because in actuality, our perception and our inspiration should complement each other. They shouldn't work against each other. If it's working against each other, that means there's a paradox that exists. All right? So, and when that occurs, when it's colliding, it's simply referring to there's a conflict of interest. And the key word I want to point out is interest. Because a paradox is self-contradiction. So a self-contradiction is going to cause you to operate out of your self-interest. Okay? So what happens, the reason I'm going over this part in the series is to explain that the external awareness can encourage us to operate against our own interests, which that's a conflict. with our inner concept that we have about ourselves. All right? So now, let me distinguish the outer awareness. The outer awareness is comprised of different orders that makes up the social order. And those that are, those that reads from the Book of Life, social order is synonymous with the word that we use, that we call the world. The world in the Greek comes from the word cosmos, which means social order, social arrangement, and etc. So there's orders that makes up the social order. All right? And these orders are, one order is the political order. And the political order focuses on the quality of life of the citizens, pretty much. The next order is the economic order, which deals with the means of preservation. Then we have the medical order, which focuses on health. We have the educational order, which deals with the molding of minds. We have the ethical order, which deals with the codes of conduct. And that's where law comes into play and so forth. We have the religious order, which focuses on how people believe. We also have the psychosocial order, which deals with the social environment, so that's dealing with domestic and the interactive thing and relationships and etc. And then we have the geophysical, the physical environment. All right, so all these different orders that I listed all creates currents. Either it's going to cater to our interests or it's going to go against our interests. And so these orders can very easily go against our self-concept of ourselves. That's what's very important for us to know ourselves. Because if we know ourselves, then we can identify when these different currents come at us to present us to operate against our own interests. All right? So how can we measure if the outer awareness is creating a paradox? You can easily determine you can determine if the outer awareness is creating a paradox simply by measuring our self-awareness. Okay? So the higher our self-awareness is, the less that a paradox is invited into our lives. Because you're more aware of yourself, the more aware of yourself, the more you understand your own interests, and the more you put up resistance from being encouraged to operate out of your own self-interest. But in reverse, as the self-awareness is lowered, it invites more of a paradox to be operating in our lives, simply because our self-awareness, awareness of ourselves, is reduced. And so unfortunately in everyday life, that these various different orders within the social order can target at us to make us lose ourselves. And losing ourselves simply means that we become less aware of ourselves. So people that are within a paradox are people that are not self-aware. All right? Now, understand the outer environment has the ability to cause any of us to lose ourselves. All right? And when we lose ourselves, we can't simply benefit ourselves. So I want you to keep that thought in mind, is that when we lose awareness of ourselves, we can lose ourselves. So I'm going to leave you with that thought. We're going to leave in love and light. Peace and blessings. We'll be back for part 10.